This drum fill sucks! I can't tell you the number of times I've said that to myself whenever I'm working through things and trying to come up with different patterns and you know, incorporate different things into my playing. Like the number of times I've got an itch on my upper lip that's just not going to give up. Like, did you see me reaching with my teeth? It was like, ugh. Didn't happen. Anyway, where was I? Yeah, so I can't tell you the number of times where I've worked on something and been like, this pattern sucks. This drum fill sucks. I don't know, you know, what's the matter with it. And it wasn't until I started looking into the concept of what I call the Big Seven. It's something I came up with years back, and that really helped me kind of organize the method for how to come up with fills in musical situations that make sense and that serve the music. Now, I've got the sheet music for you. It's in a pinned comment as usual, as well as in the video description. So go download that, and then we're going to be talking about these Big Seven concepts and how we can put that into our playing to not make us a more complicated drummer or fancy player. It's to make us more musical, to make us a better musician. That's what I'm going for. So let's jump over on the drum kit, and hopefully this will help you in going through some of your different patterns and fills. All right. We gotta make these drum fills not suck. How do we do that? If you've got a pattern that you like, but the fill just isn't coming out, or maybe you're playing a pattern by one of your favorite players and it's not sounding the same. What's going on there? So there's a concept that I teach. There's several concepts that I teach in the Drum Better Daily program, and the members and the students know them very well. And one of them is called the Big Seven, and these are 7 big picture principles that you should be applying to any exercise. And what they do is they help narrow down what you feel you need to be working on, because these 7 principles need to be worked on in every exercise, whether it's an exercise for hand and feet, or whether it's a groove exercise, or whether it's a fill exercise. And so if we take the concept of the Big Seven and we have a pattern, and let's just come up with a pattern here. We're going to play, we'll make it an easier one. So we're going to repeat right, left, kick 4 different times. So it's going to go 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a. And then we're going to end it with 4 singles, 4 E and a. 4 E and a. And that is going to be our bass fill. That drum fill kind of sucks. It just sounds just kind of blah, okay? So what are the Big Seven that I break out? I break out them a lot for my students. Those are going to be timing, they're going to be groove, it's going to be technique, you're going to look at melody, flow, and you're going to look at 2 other things, dynamics and articulation. So those are the 7, okay? And you don't have to apply them in any order, but they should be present, and you should look at them with whatever exercise. So if we start taking those concepts, a lot of times when we start learning a drum fill, it sounds kind of like, right? So what's the first thing we need to do before we can move it around the kit? We gotta be able to play it in time. So the first thing I'm gonna work on is that timing. I want it to be in time with the metronome. So I would take the click and I would put it on 16th notes. So let's do that. Let's put this on 16th notes. And I'm gonna line that up exactly with those 16th notes, and we're gonna play it at a slow tempo, let's say 50 BPM. I'm gonna make sure I can play that correctly. 2, 3 E and a, 4 E and a, 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a, 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a, 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a, 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a, 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a, 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a, 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a, 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a, 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a, 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a, 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a, 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a, 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a, 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a, 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, So I'm going to make sure I've got good timing with that all the notes are as, or if you're shuffling, to make sure that they're shuffled appropriately, that it's in the style of what we're playing. Then we get to the next one, groove. We need to make it feel good. It's not enough that it's in time, but how does it feel? Things can feel in time and they can feel very robotic, right? That's my official robot voice. So they can feel in time, but they can feel very stiff. And so what we want to do is we want to make them groove. We want to make them feel good. So when we transition from the groove that we're playing into the drum fill, there's not a drop in the feeling of the song. Everything feels and grooves the same. That's what we're going for with that, okay? Now, the next one, those are the first two that I start with. Then we start into these other ones. Technique, that's an obvious one. Am I playing this with correct technique? Is there a different way that I could play this? The next thing I'm going to start tackling is dynamics. Can I play it at a soft volume? Piano, piano. So I want to be able to have complete dynamic control over this so that, because music is nothing but tension and release. It's push and pull, and we have a few tools at our advantage, and those are timing and groove and how we space the notes and the subdivisions that we're using. And dynamics is one of those. It's a very powerful tool that not a lot of people use whenever they're playing. And I'm telling you, just put some dynamics in your playing. It's going to make things so much more dynamic. No. It's going to make things so much more colorful. Okay? Now, the next one that I talk about with the Big 7 is something called articulation. Articulation is simply, if dynamics were the temperature of this room, articulation would be the temperature of a specific item in the room. And so dynamics are the temperature of, or the volume of the entire thing that you're playing, whether that be a groove or a drum fill. Articulation is the volume of a particular note, or how you treat a particular note. Some different articulations that we can do are ghost notes, accented notes, buzzes. We could do diddles, I consider some type of articulation. So those are all like colors that we can put onto, or maybe you're playing it on the hi-hat and we want to open the hi-hat instead of a closed hi-hat. That's an articulation. Play it on the bell of the cymbal. That's an articulation. We're articulating that note in a different way. So if we take that and we go, okay, cool, well, let's take this idea of articulation, and I'm going to accent the first two right-hand notes. So it's going to sound like this. And I'm going to ghost the first two left-hand notes. Now it did sound like this. Now we have the different thing. It's almost like, oh wow, that's got some give and pull to it. And then the next two, I'm going to accent the first left hand, and then the next time I play it, the fourth time I play that pattern, I'm going to accent both hands. So the third time, fourth time, all together. Now the last 4/16 notes, I'm going to accent both right hands. Let's just make it easy. You see, that has a lot more feeling than... All right, so we've got articulation in there, okay? We can also articulate with the bass drum. Maybe we diddle one of the bass drums. A million different things that we can do with that, but let's just stick with the first way that we articulated it. The next thing that I'm going to do is something called melody. And a lot of other instruments think about this. We as drummers don't often think about this, but we should. Melody is the line that you're going to play. You know, when a soloist is playing a line, they're thinking about a melody. They're thinking about something that they can make and then take that and change it a little bit more, morph it a little bit more, and lead into the next melody. So those are hooks for the listener to listen to. And that's what guitar licks are. That's what, you listen to Coltrane and you'll hear these licks reappear. What he's doing is he has these melodies and these pieces that he uses. And so as drummers, if we start thinking in melodies, it takes a lot of the pressure off of us thinking in rhythms and being so complex, and now we're thinking like musicians. And so I'm trying to make a certain feeling come about. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to think about the melody of this drum fill. What is the melody that I want to play on this drum fill? Well, for this, I'll play the first accented note here on the snare drum, second accented note here on the fourth tom. The next accented note, the left hand, I'm going to play on the high tom. Then the next two I'm going to play on the snare drum. And then I'm going to play 4 and here. So we started with something that was very bland.
Oh no!
When we started, we couldn't play it in time, it didn't groove, and now we've moved it to something that sounds a lot better and a lot more musical. And the seventh thing I talk about is flow, and that's where we get into the area of being able to go in and out of this without thinking about it. In other words, our playing is uninterrupted. We can use it, we can take elements of it, use it in a solo. So the next thing is to begin to move it around even more, move those accents around, and get it to where we can be in a state of flow, or a state of constant play. When you're watching kids play with toys, they're in this state called flow. When you get into your work and you're just like you're doing it, like everything's just second nature, and you look up and it's been 2 hours and you've gotten so much done. That's flow, that's a state of flow. And that's something that we want to achieve whenever we're on the drum set, that we're not thinking in rhythms, we're thinking in music, we're thinking in melodies, we're thinking in tension and release, we're thinking about the other players, and we're not thinking internally. See, we so often think internally. It's like me, 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 me. Stop doing that. Think externally. And the only way we begin to think externally is by internalizing the concepts so that we can look up and begin to externalize what's going on and use our sight and sound, right? We use these senses to be able to look around and go, wow, there's things happening. And then you begin to use those things that you've internalized in an external way to where it benefits the music. That got a little bit deeper than I wanted it to. But I think it's valuable for you to know that. I don't just want you to be a chopsy player. I want you to be a musical player. So this can be applied to top 40 music. This can be applied to jazz music. All of these things. Think in melody. Think of being in a state of flow. Think of playing with good technique. Think of playing with dynamics. Think of playing with articulation. Think of playing with good timing. Think of playing with groove. All of these things are so very important, and will really take your playing to the next level. It will make you feel like your playing is going to that next level. You can take a simple drum fill and add these concepts to it, and it makes it sound completely different. All right? So if this has helped you, hit that thumbs up button. Leave me a comment. Let me know which one of the big 7 is your favorite. Which one are you struggling with? Because we all struggle with one of these at some point or another. All right? As well, if you're wanting to go in depth with this type of stuff, I have a whole program, the Drum Better Daily program, and it is catered to your specific needs. It has been proven over the years. There's over 70 lesson tracks in there. There's a ton of one-off lessons. There's a forum. There's pre-guided lesson plans. I make personalized lesson plans every day, student reviews, all of those things. And it's all so that you can have guided and consistent progress in your playing. And we talk about concepts like these, big picture concepts that don't just change one thing. They don't just teach you a drum lick. They make you a better player and a better musician. That's what I'm going for. As well, if you want to share it with somebody that you think it may help, do that. Be sure and subscribe to the channel. There's new content coming all the time. Ding that notifications button. But whatever you do, I'll see you here in the next lesson.